I may have fuck, I messed it up. I may have committed the sin of gluttony, but I did not commit the sin of empathy. Just thought there was a blues song in there.
There definitely is. It's just waiting to be found.
Just waiting to be found. No one cares about the blues anymore. I'm so sorry. One day the blues will come back. Hi everybody. Welcome to the Schmoes show. I'm the infamous Orion, and last time I checked, I was a Schmo.
And I'm Carl. And I'm also a Schmo.
So, how has your week been, Mr. Chiral?
It's been a week. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Between the weather we were having at the start of this week and everything kind of snowballing after that, it's been busy.
Yeah. Hasn't it and hasn't it not? I think we're getting last week tonight back soon though, so that's good.
Nice.
Yeah.
That'll be good. It'll be good to have them. They've got a lot of work to do.
Jesus. Okay. So we're recording this. It's like been 1 week since Donnie's been back.
Mm-hmm.
Motherfucker's been busy. I'm half convinced he's trying to get all of his work done before he goes back to the golf course.
He's got to do it before the weather gets good.
Seriously though, like
it really feels like it, kind of. I don't know. It's strange, and it's obviously been just kind of awful to see how everything is unfolding. But at the same time, there have been some reassurances that I've been trying to find out of all of this. So we'll be going through some of it. I don't expect to go through everything today because we generally try to keep this under 2 hours, and I'd like to eat dinner sometime tonight.
I have dinner with my family in 2 hours, so I would hope we get it done in 2 hours.
Yeah, we'll see what we get through though, because it's been a hell of a week.
It has been a busy week. I mean, overall, it's very interesting. Have you seen like the Donnie Dick sicking that's going on in Congress?
I have.
My favorite is the dude who's doing the third term constitutional amendment already.
Yep.
Yeah. Like,
it's so flagrant.
I just want them to know. I know it's not going to happen because the worst thing to ever happen to Donnie is if Obama comes back for a third term.
Yeah. So that's the thing. I guess we'll see, right? Because that is the open question: is that any loophole they make for Donnie could be easily just as well exploited by Obama. Like if they try and be like, because the current scheme that I've heard is that they'll have somebody else run as VP and Trump, or someone else run as president, and Trump would be the vice president, and then that person just abdicates on day 2. Something like that kind of a scheme.
The Republicans don't have the balls to do that.
Yeah. The other one was an argument where if Trump was to come to power by some means other than an election, he would not be able to be removed from that position legally.
Jesus.
You know, very nudge, nudge, wink, wink kind of bullshit.
Okay. So
I particularly enjoyed, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in quite a while later, if we go through how they have this ordered up here. But there was the bishop of the Episcopal Diocese in Washington who gave a statement that made the Republicans and the right in general very, very unhappy. And among those was a Republican senator from like Oklahoma, somewhere in like the South, but not the South.
Yeah.
That drafted a proposal for Congress to condemn her speech. Total meaningless fluff. But it stood out because this guy is also an Episcopalian of the same denomination.
Jesus.
And
yeah,
it was very funny to see his own church come out in stark opposition to the condemnation that he was trying to pass onto bishophood. Where his own church is being like, yeah, we don't agree with this guy. More than that, reporting on it, we dug into a little bit more, like, who the hell is this guy? Why is he bending the knee so much? Turns out he's actively under investigation by the FBI.
Surprise, fucking surprise.
So it's going around.
Jesus. Okay. Enough about that.
Yeah. Let's start at the start.
Yeah.
Inauguration Day. Honestly, kind of nothing that happened that day, except for one particular billionaire who just couldn't contain his
Heart.
fascist glee. Elon Musk, I was going to say for whatever reason, we all know the reason. He's a Nazi. Like, the dude grew up in South Africa, apartheid. It's not exactly subtle where he gets his influence from. Went up after Trump's inauguration and gave not one, but two full-on Sieg Heil Hitler salutes in front of God and the cameras. And there's not much more to say about it other than that, I don't think. It's reprehensible and unacceptable. It's gross. Nazis can go to hell.
Yeah. Okay, so I have so many mixed feelings. Like,
Mm-hmm.
mainly negative. All negative, I should point out. Different shades of negative, I should point out.
Yeah.
I know he's a South African bastard. And every time I learn about white people in South Africa, I cry a little.
Mm-hmm.
So Elon's definitely not on virtue there.
Yeah.
However, here's my idea, right? I think Elon is probably a Nazi. Like, he will, behind closed doors, identify as one. I don't think he fully commits to it. And I think he was stroking his own dick in that moment, thinking he could get like a dog whistle in. And then it backfired.
He's exactly as much of a Nazi as every other person that trolls 4chan.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, maybe you are, maybe you aren't, but you're comfortable enough inviting that company that the distinction doesn't matter at a certain point.
I think
you're willing to look the way enough that you're letting reprehensible things happen under your watch.
My opinion is the distinction only matters in their own little circle at that point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Thankfully for us, though, Elon went ahead and doubled down yesterday, making a surprise guest appearance at Germany's AfD, the Alternative für Deutschland, basically their alt-right political party campaign election event.
I'm done with him. I am so fucking done with this man.
Some highlights of his surprise appearance in eastern part of Germany. He spoke about preserving German culture and protecting the German people. Quote, "It's good to be proud of German culture, German values, and not to lose that in some sort of multiculturalism that dilutes everything." He also said that children should not be guilty of the sins of their parents, let alone their great-grandparents, apparently in reference to Germany's Nazi past. Quote, "There is too much focus on past guilt, and we need to move beyond that." I'm very excited for the AfD. I think you're really the best hope for Germany. Fight for a great future for Germany. So this is Elon Musk going up to the far extreme right political party in Germany and telling people to not feel guilty about the way that their grandparents may or may not have been Nazis, because they're not Nazis. Wink, wink.
I really want this to blow up in his face. I don't know how, but it's going to blow up in his face.
I hope more than anything that if these abhorrent executive orders with regard to immigration are going to happen the way that they sure seem like they're going to, that he somehow gets caught up in them as well. By being, he's an African immigrant in the purest definition of it, trying to pretend to be an American.
Oh, yeah. That's why I get a little offended.
And it's so pathetic.
Yeah. I just want to know, what's Elon's relationship to South Africa at this point?
Basically nothing.
Yeah. He's just some dude. And, I don't understand why he doesn't, I get why he does the American thing. He's got business here. You think he would have some kind of cultural relevance for the place he was fucking raised in?
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it. I don't get that man. Oh, sorry, he's not a man. He's a child.
Okay. Going from there, what do I have next? Oh yeah, a bit of an amuse-bouche of highlights from this last week. I'm trying to skip over the big ones because I feel like there's been not enough coverage, but there has been a lot of coverage of that going on already. And there's a couple of the things that I think kind of flew a bit under the radar. I will make a quick pit stop though before we go to mention the confirmation of Hegseth into the position of Secretary of Defense. And given the current members of the Supreme Court, it's wild to say this, bar none, the most unqualified person to ever be nominated and confirmed by the Senate for a position in the government. It's a great example that we'll be able to point to, I hope, in history years down the road, of the sheer amount of incompetence and malice that was being perpetuated today. That someone this obviously bad at a job is being nominated for it purely because they're so willing to fall in line with whatever dumb things happen.
Oh yeah.
My personal favorite highlight from Hegseth's nomination hearings, when questioned about his history of alcohol abuse, addiction, and DUIs, and how whether he felt he would be, in his own view, an effective member of the government, knowing his abuse of substances, his response was that being the Secretary of Defense would sound like a good reason to not continue those abuses.
What the fuck?
So, we just have an alcoholic idiot as the Secretary of Defense now. That's a very rational, reasonable position with no stress at all or high tension decisions to be made.
Someone in the Trump administration is going to be found hanging in a closet. That's my bingo card.
I wouldn't be the most surprising thing.
Yeah. And honestly, with the news that Elon isn't allowed to see Donnie anymore in the political offices, Elon's on that list too.
Mm-hmm. For the rest of the articles I have queued up here, the general theme that I'm hoping to help communicate is how the actions of the administration have emboldened other people to fall in line in ways that they don't need to. And we're going to start with the Justice Department, because they had a bit of a 1-2 punch of just disgrace this week amongst their members. Not a surprising amount, given, who's in charge, but the Justice Department, in the wake of Trump's nomination, has officially dropped a case against a Texas doctor who was charged with leaking healthcare information about a patient that he had who was transgender.
That's really disgusting.
So, it is. And it's very easy, and I'm sure they will be, they being the right-wing media, and the not-so-right-wing media, as we've seen them fall nicely in line with everything else this last week, will point to this in the specifics of it being as related to transgender individuals, and happily ignore the fact that regardless of what condition a person was being seen or consulted or treated for, medical information is medical information. And this is a flagrant violation of that individual's rights, having their medical information leaked. And if the government is the one that gets to decide whether your medical information is worth being protected or not, it is not a slippery slope to see how that can be applied to other things, like abortions, or how about vasectomies? Ooh. Since they're going after those too.
Are you fucking kidding me?
There's a long, long list. Oh, of course they are. We'll get to that later on. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. So can I be the first one to say it?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I'm speaking on all the white guys in America at the moment. you know, their target demographic.
Mm-hmm.
My body, my choice.
Mm-hmm. Well, not if you're in Oklahoma, but we'll get to that as well.
Fuck Oklahoma.
The emboldening continues. The Justice Department also announced this week that they would be freezing all civil rights cases that are currently pending in order to reassess any pending complaints or settlements, and they're going to be ordering a freeze of any DOJ settlements or decisions that were made by the Biden administration within the last 90 days, saying that the new administration may wish to reconsider such agreements. In particular, two major settlements that were made in the last 90 days. One being in the city of Louisville, with an agreement to overhaul the police force following Breonna Taylor's shooting by police officers and the police treatment of protesters in the wake. And another agreement in Minneapolis, with an agreement to overhaul the city's police training and use of force policies following George Floyd's murder. So, to be very clear about what policies and civil rights cases are being targeted by this isn't petty little marginal, bureaucracy things. This is Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, and what should be the absolute bare minimum of recompense that these cities have to undergo to atone for the awful treatment that their police departments have brought. And one of the first acts of the new DOJ is to walk those back.
It really sucks.
Mm-hmm.
I just have nothing.
Yeah, there's not much.
We are like 2 steps away from them declassifying certain ethnic groups of white as no longer white again.
Well, we'll get to that.
No, you are fucking lying.
I wish not with particular to white, but they're sure going after ethnic groups that they said they weren't gonna. And a great shock to everyone.
2 steps away. Yeah.
Trump has announced that 17 inspector generals of various federal agencies are to be fired. This is in direct contravention of the way that the inspector general system are supposed to be handled, where a 30-day notice is intended or is required to be given to Congress before any inspector general can or will be allowed to be fired. But anyone want to take any guesses as to whether the current Congress is going to enforce that? Thankfully, at least one inspector general has publicly come out and said, this isn't how the law is. I will not be complying with this because it is an unlawful order, and good for them. A brief, not complete list of the agencies impacted by their inspector generals attempting to be fired includes the Department of Defense, the Department of State, the Department of Transportation, Department of Labor, Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Veterans Affairs, Department of Housing and Urban Development, Department of the Interior, Department of Energy, Department of Commerce, Department of Agriculture, the EPA, the Small Business Association, and the Social Security Administration. In other words, basically everything.
Dude, Social Security getting I'm shocked. Sorry. That's like
it has been a running joke our entire lives about how we'll never see a dime of Social Security.
Yeah.
But it is still a bit surreal to see the steps fall into place one by one that makes that a reality.
Fuck us.
Mm-hmm. Moving to Oklahoma. This is a fun one. Oklahoma Senator Dusty Devers, great name, has introduced a new bill that this is a state senator, to be clear. A new bill into the Oklahoma Senate that would criminalize pornography in the state of Oklahoma, establishing a 10-year prison term for anybody who makes, distributes, or possesses adult content.
There's no way that's passing.
It's Oklahoma? Who knows? I would not at all be surprised to see this pass in a not as strict form in the state of Oklahoma, even though this is very obviously a violation of many rights, not least of all the First Amendment.
Oh no, you know what it is?
That's a very blatant one.
Yeah. It's another way of attacking LGBT people who just happen to be holding, pornography.
Or they get to be the ones who decide what pornography is. so they can say that you being an LGBT person in existence is obscene and lewd.
That's fucked up. I see what you're getting at. I also see this as a scenario where they redefined pornography to attack a lot of LGBT media.
Oh, they absolutely will.
They will, absolutely.
Yeah. It is also worth noting that there is a case moving through Texas right now with regard to their attempt to, as they would say, require age enforcement, but effectively ban pornography from internet access within the state of Texas. And the difference and the rapid escalation between that case, where the crux of their argument is that children should not be able to view pornography, to now the Oklahoma proposal that has it so that nobody is allowed to possess pornography. From there, we're going to go to Idaho, another bastion of civil rights. This one's a real doozy, and thankfully has basically no mechanism to actually have it be enforced. But given the Supreme Court that we have, who the hell knows at this point? Lawmakers in Idaho, to be clear, this is a state house committee. This is not the state house body in general, nor has it gone through their Senate. So the possibility of this actually getting through those steps is far away and probably unlikely, given that the entire thing here is complete theater. But regardless, the Idaho State House Committee passed a resolution calling for the Supreme Court to overturn Obergefell v. Hobbs, which was the decision in 2015 that allowed same-sex couples the right to marry regardless of state.
Fucking going for the fences.
Absolutely. If we go back to 2022 with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, this falls right in line with basically the bullet point list of other cases that Justice Thomas has put on his short list for other decisions that he would like to see overturned. Obergefell v. Hobbs was one of them. Others related to interracial marriage, falling under the same principles that these were decided on, and the right to contraception, which would be vasectomies, condoms, etc.
That man can't die fast enough.
Nope. Be careful about that, though. They might arrest you.
What do you mean?
A man in Florida was arrested this week for issuing threats, gigantic quotes around threats, to the president. Florida man said, let me see if I can find it real quick, because it's the most, not the most banal. Quote, "America needs one good bullet to be saved." Is a statement that Atkins, a Florida man, wrote on Facebook that resulted in his arrest on the 19th. He's been charged with a number of crimes in the state of Florida, and they are continuing to hold him in jail for it. One count of written or electronic threats to kill, do bodily injury, or conduct a mass shooting or an act of terrorism, which is a second-degree felony.
Wait till they find out about Luigi.
So yeah, we're very quickly getting to the points where people should unfortunately have to really consider what state they're, living in before being able to exercise their rights without being arrested for it. Good stuff as always.
I love our country, Kyril.
Mm-hmm. We're going to get to the turn here, though. Okay? It's coming up here. First, though, I want to take a brief aside to talk about the Instagram, Facebook, Meta hiding search results for Democrats thing.
Oh, yeah. Did that ever get, any follow-up?
Let me check this BBC article. See if they have any updates. I don't believe so. I believe Meta gave a statement that said, here it is, we're aware of an error affecting hashtags across the political spectrum, and we are working quickly to resolve it. So they claimed it was a bug, and they fixed the bug.
I'm sure it was a bug. I'm sure. That's so stupid.
So yeah, for anybody who might have not heard this, earlier on this week, what was that, 5 days ago? Tuesday, Wednesday. In the early hours of the morning on that day, well before most people in the U.S. would have been up and around, because this was like 6 in the morning, I think our time was when it was actually getting around, and by the time everyone was up, it was kind of done. A bug, quote unquote, happened on Meta's platforms where if you tried to look up a hashtag of a variety of terms, including Democrats, particular left-wing figures like John Oliver, Jon Stewart, you would be met with the message, we've hidden these results. Results for the term you searched for may contain sensitive information. There's a certain amount here of just very valid concern that this bug, assuming in good faith that it is a bug, that there are systems that can cause this bug to happen. Like, what the hell is going on? And it was particularly damning in this case because many conservative and right-wing tags were completely unaffected. I believe the only one was if you did Republicans. If you did Republican, it would come back fine. If you did conservative, it would come back fine. If you did liberal, you saw nothing. There's a good piece here from Matt Navarra as part of the BBC's coverage saying that it was embarrassing, no shit, quote, in a hyper-partisan environment, even unintentional errors like this can escalate into accusations of partisanship. And yeah, we're well past that. Yeah, Zuckerberg has made sure that we moved rapidly past that point long before this.
What is Zuck's long-term plan? Because like this is
make money.
I don't understand it though, because like, it's very short-term.
So yeah, okay. Here's this very short-term plan, right?
Yeah.
Trump announced their Project Stargate, which I was going to mention a little bit later once you talk about the Chinese AI stuff.
Yeah.
Which is something like $500 billion in government grants to go towards American AI projects, and Zuckerberg wants a slice of that free money.
Fair.
I have to imagine that is, in hindsight, almost the exclusive reason that all of these people have started towing the line so aggressively in the last month, is that there was some communication between their businesses and the Trump administration to the tune of, we're going to do this thing. Are you on board? And they said, we like money. Tell us what to do. And they did the things that they needed to do.
That really does frame a lot of shit. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. But quite frankly, it makes so much sense, and it's so fucking funny what actually happened then.
Yep.
So do you think they're going to roll back on Project Start? Okay, we should just tell the start. If we're going to do it now,
yeah, we can go ahead and go to that.
Yeah.
Yep. So, Chinese... Oh, where was it? Is it in the other article? I have like 2 articles that I pulled up for this because I was trying to figure out like how much do we actually know, right? There's always a bit of a veil when it comes to Chinese technology with like, you know, how much of this is real, how much of this is hype and bluster. And it does seem, preliminarily at least, like this is to a degree legitimate. And there's other things that I've learned reading about this that I think are bringing up as well. But the headline of this is that there's a Chinese AI company called DeepSeek that has trained a new large language model in a manner that they claim has it as effective as OpenAI, Meta, or Anthropic's large language models, but doing so in a way that used 11 times less GPU computing to create it, and as a direct result, 11 times less energy and time to do so.
That's fucked up.
It's a pretty huge jump. Yeah. Whether the Western analogs are particularly concerned about this is something that I've had a hard time finding. I know there's been conversation on social media, but when it comes to like people actually in positions of authority, it seems like their plan has so far been to just ignore it, which, fair enough, I guess, to a degree. But the particularly interesting part about this is that this Chinese company, DeepSeek, has been able to do this in spite of the many, many tariffs and international trade embargoes that have been placed against China to explicitly try and prevent this from happening. You basically can't buy a high-end graphics card from an American or European company in China at this point. And yet, they're still going toe-to-toe, it seems like.
But why?
Because they also like money. A piece in a writer's article that I was reading about this also brought up Huawei, and a very interesting statistic where, as a percent of sales, Huawei has a significant lead over almost any Western tech company in their R&D spending, where Huawei is reinvesting 23% of their total proceeds back into the company through R&D spending, about 230. Is it? Wait, let me double check this. I want to say $23 billion back into their company, compared to Meta, who's only doing it at 19%. Then everyone else is way, way, way lower than that.
So, real question: Did we mention that DeepSeek was also open source?
That part of it is mixed still, because it is technically open, but it's open to the degree that DeepSeek wants to allow other people to be able to replicate their project. When you get into AI computing at this level, being able to look at the underlying architecture only gets you so far when so much of it happens at the training level.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's definitely stuff that other people can learn from this, but I would suspect, because so much of it is still obscured, just as an inherent part of how AI training works these days, that they allowed it to be open source knowing that their competitors can't really glean that much from it and improve their own models.
Makes sense.
Would also be extremely funny if this was completely made up and they just trick Meta and Google and everyone into wasting a month of GPU time trying to replicate these results that are real.
I really hope that happens too.
But on the Huawei stuff, though, there is this talk about how 2 years ago, Huawei announced their own in-house custom-built chips for their smartphones, and how this has been a relative trend at this point now of Chinese companies finding their own ways to evade particularly to evade American sanctions and still continue to be not, 1-to-1, but not that far behind their American counterparts in these fields.
We're fucked.
It's a tricky thing. I'm mixed on it personally, where I wish there was a way for the American people and the Chinese people to have closer relationships and just have a more open culture of, collaboration to everybody's benefit. But at the same time, knowing the American government and the Chinese government, that is neither a reality nor something that seems like a good idea for either side.
I agree. Quite frankly, it's interesting.
It is.
We could have such progress, like I hate to bring this up because I don't think it's a great fucking example, but
Mm-hmm.
in terms of speaking metaphorically on like the relationship between politics and technology, the International Space Station, I wish we had that kind of ground zero going on, just from a humanity perspective.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Wouldn't it be nice?
Last real negative one I have here, then we can go into some of the positives, because there have been some positives, and I think it's worth highlighting them. Talking about how white people not being white people anymore, the Trump administration, in their attempt to end birthright citizenship in the United States, which is its own whole thing, and I would hope one of the main talking points of a Last Week Tonight episode once they come back.
Oh yeah.
There's a Seattle judge who already has blocked Trump's birthright citizenship executive order. And I found it very amusing. This is apparently a Reagan-era judge, so, like, not some NIMBY communist type. This is, like, old-school Republican. Good quote from him. "I've been on the bench for over 4 decades. I can't remember another case where the question presented was as clear."
Damn.
Yeah. This is flagrantly unconstitutional. This has been tried so many times over the years. This is maybe not like the most tried area of constitutional law, but it's up there. It's way up there. And in particular to that, the lawyers on behalf of the Trump administration trying to push this end to birthright citizenship through brought up a point to justify their argument that is now, as of 2025, over 100 years out of date, claiming that because Native Americans aren't U.S. citizens, therefore, children of immigrants that are not full legal citizens cannot be American citizens. And this is in direct contravention to the fact that in 1924, Congress specifically passed an act amending the 14th Amendment to include Native Americans as American citizens in full citizenship, while also remaining to have their independent tribal authorities.
Motherfuckers really thought they had a comment there, didn't they?
Mm-hmm. And it's a great example of just how not just like ill thought out, but just ignorant and dumb and willingness to just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks they are. So this is the quote from it. "The United States' connection with the children of illegal immigrants and temporary visitors is weaker than its connection with members of Indian tribes. If the latter link is insufficient for birthright citizenship, the former certainly is." Well, good, because Indians are birthright citizens. We passed a law to specifically allow for that. So good luck.
God bless America. It's gonna be
good
a
news,
fun...
though.
Oh, sorry.
Just while we're on the, birthright citizenship, immigrant deportation stuff, we had articles this week of instances in both Mexico and Colombia of U.S. military flights being told to go to hell and not permitted them to disembark, I guess is technically what it would be. These are military flights trying to land in these foreign countries with immigrants to deport, and the countries of Mexico and Colombia refused that and sent them back home, basically.
Yeah, I was actually just reading a story about how Trump is throwing a fit and issuing tariffs and a transport ban.
Mm-hmm.
Coffee's going to suck.
In some other news that's bad news, maybe, for Twitter, Wall Street banks are getting ready to start selling their loans that they have to Twitter. When that happens, it'll give everybody a very clear idea of what Twitter's actually worth.
Oh no. Oh, Elon, how you're going to get your way out of this one?
Seems that Morgan Stanley bankers have reached out to investors ahead of a planned sale of up to $3 billion in debt that the bank and others, such as Bank of America and Barclays, lent to Musk for his purchase of Twitter in 2022.
It really has been 2 years of that, hasn't it?
Almost 3.
Almost 3.
They claim that they're hoping to get 90 to 95 cents on the dollar for their loans. We'll see how that goes.
Who's gonna buy it? Like fucking China? It's like I don't know who's gonna want Twitter debt.
I would have to imagine independent advisors. Apparently, just skimming through this article some more, the banks have not officially disclosed where their stakes are, but some equity investors have already written down their shares by as much as 75%.
God damn.
So it'll be fascinating to see.
They really don't have faith.
Whichever way it goes, it's going to be interesting to see, right?
Yeah.
You know, could anybody? And this has been a bit of a recurring theme that we've seen over the last couple of years, is just how detached from reality most of our financial institutions are, especially when you look at, like, you know, the continued use of the stock market as an index for the health of the economy, and just how skewed that has gotten from the average, you know, citizens' experience interacting with the economy day to day. We could very well see a similar thing here, where you get investors type people who just want a stake in X, regardless of the fact that they've seen mass exoduses from the platform due to the rampant mismanagement and polarization that have been happening at the helm of it. And we saw that come to a bit of a head this week with Musk's Nazi, you know, favoring, where dozens of Reddit subreddit groups have started to ban the posting of direct links to Twitter directly on Reddit, because, you know, it's already a horrible website to use, and they don't want to deal with the Nazi stuff now too.
I don't blame them, quite frankly. Like, okay, here's something I've kind of had to reckon with. Like, personal anecdote here. I come from a family where addiction is kind of part of our personalities. I've got a pretty safe addiction with caffeine, but I've also realized my addictive personality is very regulated for Twitter and whatnot. And that I've been trying to taper it off from me, but at the same time, I cannot get away from it, and I hate it. I hate it so much. So, like, I'm really rooting for, like, these bans to make it less and less viable for, like, that kind of ecosystem of content to be supported on Twitter. Because I know, once the content goes, I'll be able to break free a little faster.
I've experienced a bit of that too. I've just been trying to put barriers in between my using different social medias, and just doing that has really helped to make it inconvenient and use them less.
Please, like, I don't get it, man. I don't like it. I don't like what it does to my brain. It's why I won't get TikTok. We didn't talk about the TikTok bans. Fuck the TikTok bans. Hated that.
Yeah. It's just such bullshit.
Yeah. Very, I don't know.
In some other news,
go on.
I want to briefly mention the Bishop of the Episcopal Church of Washington, Marion Bood, who gave the homily at the interfaith service following the inauguration, during which she had a brief mention in her speech where she addressed Trump directly and saying, among other things, to have mercy for the people in the United States who are fearful for themselves and their lives. And it has been extremely expected seeing the responses from others to that.
Yeah.
But I have immense respect for her. Makes me proud to have my Episcopalian roots to see an Episcopalian bishop stand up and say, good things and just be a religious leader. Like, what a rarity these days, it feels like. But in particular, having the rest of the church kind of come around behind her in the face of the noise that's happening online and just being like, no, we agree with her. We're not going to condemn what she's saying. In a similar vein, we also had a fascinating vote from Costco's shareholders this week. Did you hear about this?
Yo, okay. Costco is a real one.
It is. And in light of this, I'm going to be changing my bulk buying subscription over to them this year. A conservative right-wing think tank, NCPPR. What does that stand for? I don't care. They're dumb. Filed a proposal to Costco citing a 2023 Supreme Court case demanding that the company conduct a financial risk analysis to determine if its DEI initiatives could make it a target for employment discrimination suits. Quote, with 310,000 employees, Costco likely has at least 200,000 employees who are potential victims of this type of illegal discrimination because they are white, Asian, male, or straight. Accordingly, if even a fraction of those employees were to file suit, only some of those prove successful, the cost to Costco could be tens of billions of dollars. In response, Costco's shareholders, with a 98% vote, rejected the proposal and has allowed their DEI initiatives to remain in place.
Costco is so fucking real for that.
Overwhelming support. 98%.
I kind of hate the wording of that proposal, by the way. Because
it's awful.
Yeah. Whomst is going to see like DEI and think, oh, I can get a payout from that?
Asshole white people. That is the crux of this, is they're saying that Costco has 200,000 employees who are majority white and could sue because Costco has not white people. Not Costco, because Costco has not white people and Costco has initiatives for diversity.
Like, okay, so here's the thing, right? Yeah. The job market kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And it ain't DEI's fault. It's literally just designed to constantly like hang a job and never fill a job with anybody good. I firmly believe every company who follows like the HR practices of today intentionally tries to have high turnover just so they can always say they're always hiring. I think most companies hire underqualified candidates. And that's not through DEI. That is through just company culture and the benefits they get for having those job openings.
Absolutely. I think we've really seen how fickle these company cultures have been with the places that have immediately fallen in line with obviously immoral and decisions that they don't need to fall in line with, right?
Yeah.
You can wait and have somebody tell you what you're doing is either illegal or no longer protected or something like that, but instead they're going out of their way to strip these principles that they claimed to care about previously. We saw it notably this week with Target, where they cut out all of their DEI initiatives and whatever. And it's like, why? Why are you doing this? You don't have to. You're only doing it because you want to suck up to the new guys.
I don't get it, dude. Like, Okay, so here's my another proposal I have for you. Every company that's pulling out the DEI stuff probably
Yep,
was not even enforcing it that well in the first place.
absolutely.
Yeah.
One more piece I want to talk about before we can get into some more of the entertainment stuff. Again, along with the TikTok thing, to something that we were gone last week, so we didn't get a chance to talk about. Uh, there's a ceasefire in Israel,
Woohoo!
and there have been extremely. Sorry, give me one sec. There's been extremely mixed reporting uh, on the tenuousness of the ceasefire, but we have kind of two examples going in different directions, right? There's the Hamas Israel ceasefire, and then there's the ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon. And in the last 24 hours, we've seen a good thing happen with the ceasefire in Hamas, where Hamas released 4 female Israeli soldiers in exchange for 200 Palestinian prisoners. And we saw a bad thing in Lebanon, where the people of Lebanon were trying to return to their homes, and an area that was part of their ceasefire, the Israeli military did not want them to, and fired upon them when they tried to go and return to their homes regardless. So a little bit of good, a little bit of bad, but, you know, the fact that the deal happened at all and when it happened is all, you know, well worth a longer, deeper look, because it's all pretty obvious.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
You know what? It's one good thing I've realized lately.
What's up?
I know there's a lot of change going on right now, but quite frankly, assuming there's no third term, like nonsense, because I don't think they have the balls to do that. And if they do, I will be very, very excited to see who's the next president to come for a third term against Donnie. I love the idea that technically we only get 3.5 years of Donnie, because quite frankly, when the next election cycle starts, I get the impression he's just going to dip a little sooner than usual.
I don't know. I'm waiting for that hammer to drop. I absolutely agree with your earlier interpretation, where he's going to get bored eventually.
Yeah, definitely.
There are, like, Donald Trump is without question a hateful, awful person, but he is bar none selfish more than anything else.
Look at the Colombian tariffs right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
I won't be surprised if there are attempts to justify a third term of some kind, and hopefully institutions will hold and it won't allow it. I could very well see challenges, you know, just having relatively liberal states, and this is going to be very important for the elections that happen before the next presidential election, to make sure that blue and purple states stay blue or shift blue again at a local and state level. Having people in positions of power to say, no, we're not going to put you on the ballot, you're president twice, that's against the Constitution, fuck off,
Yeah.
is going to be very important. You know, how many states were close this last time, right? How many states are going to continue to be close when he tries to run again? And if you can keep him off the ballot in one or two important ones because he's legally not allowed to be on the ballot, it will matter.
Yeah.
It'll add up. It's also going to be fascinating if that does happen, because, to put it bluntly, the people who are his diehard, you know, followers are dumb, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think they're smart enough to know to not just write Donald Trump's name on the ballot when they don't see it at the top?
Now let's give him a directive.
And you could very well use that to disqualify any ticket that has Trump on it as a VP if the goal is elect somebody else and then put Trump on it. It's, you know, gives the game away, right?
Yeah.
So we haven't seen this yet because we haven't had a Republican presidential ballot with Trump not on it. But I fully expect that assuming elections return to some sense of normalcy, in the same way that you have people who write in like fucking Mickey Mouse on their ballots, you're going to have people writing in Trump's name for decades, as long as they live, probably, just because they're so just out of touch with reality.
Yeah.
Speaking of out of touch with reality, Switch 2 leaks.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Switch 2, I guess. I wanted to start by kind of like highlighting the reason why I just kind of like at the same time don't want to is because of the leaks being just so overwhelming and journalism being dead, making it so hard to figure out what's legitimate and what isn't. I went and I just Googled Switch 2 before the start of the show, and there's a handful of news articles, and then Google has added a thing that is what people are saying. And it has 3 social media links to it. 2 are different subreddits sharing somebody's Pokemon-themed Switch 2 concept art, not real. And the third is a YouTube short with 800,000 views that just says, "The Nintendo Switch 2 is doomed?" Skull emoji.
So I think this is actually a way more interesting conversation we can build off for the Switch 2. Journalism. One of us here has a degree in it, so he might have a strong opinion or two on that. I am of the opinion that, quite frankly, guerrilla journalism by individuals is very important.
Yes.
But quite frankly, the social media landscape that we live in right now focuses way too much on yellow journalistic integrity, where it's basically shove as much shit for engagement into a leak as possible. And
absolutely.
You will win. So quite frankly, there is no incentive, other than, for reputable leakers, to give any kind of accuracy. And quite frankly, a broken clock is right twice a day. So even then, you have a lot of people who don't know shit do shit. And I am fundamentally very disappointed in the state of journalism as an industry, just because they can't fund like fact checking and shit like this. So it is a case of where the asylum is run by inmates, and anybody that can have like any reputation or whatnot is completely at the mercy of unreliable information sources. And I don't mean that in terms of accuracy, but like how much they'll put out.
Yep. And to that end, their willingness to put out more undermines any other reporting they do that is more factual or accurate.
I agree. In fact,
I have a really good example of that here, if I could. I didn't really look at it before because I didn't care, but I was skimming through the news, like the actual news stories that Google is promoting for the Switch 2 right now. 2 of them are compilations, I guess, highlights from an interview that Phil Spencer gave on another forum where he complimented the Switch and its obvious success. The third is a rumored game that might be coming to the Switch 2. And the fourth, and in my opinion the most egregious, is an article from Forbes exclusively about a concept art that someone else made for the Switch 2 that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So Forbes, what the fuck are you doing?
I think that the problem is a lot of journalism as an industry is just a content farm nowadays, where you get a lot of editorial and fast click sensationalism. Reporting is a lost art. I hate to say this because I don't like talking about my job too often. It's why I like my job, because I get to do some of that reporting shit. Granted, a lot of the stuff I do doesn't get published. Uh,
Hmm.
but reporting is such a lost fucking art at this point. And ultimately, we won't even know anything about the Switch 2 until Nintendo puts out a press release, which they've already been so nice to give you a due date of when to expect that press release. So that makes everything you could do as a piece of journalism without actual on-the-field reporting superfluous.
Yep. Next up I have quick talk about Daredevil. We got Daredevil Born Again coming out later this year.
Daredevil by Marvel, the original Netflix run, I would put in my top 5 TV shows of all time.
It's really good.
I think it is the best piece of superhero media. Like, quite frankly, every other movie that Marvel has put out, not as good. The Batman, very close to that. But I think Matt Murdock in the original Daredevil is a more complex character and a more interesting character. Yeah. Have you
I am
watched,
very interested to... What's that?
Did you ever finish the original Daredevil run?
I have not gotten past the first season.
Okay.
But I did watch the whole first season.
First season is probably the best. I think season 3 is probably personal favorite. Season 2 is very rough around the edges because they were doing a crossover at the time.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I am very interested to see how this turns out. It has a ton of potential just from a storytelling perspective. It's something that's been lacking from a lot of Marvel's recent just attempts in general.
I agree. I think I really respect that they didn't rush into this. Quite frankly, it shows me that there's a little bit more integrity coming to this. I just don't want them to ruin the legacy of one of the best shows of all time. Kyril, what are your top 5 shows of all time?
I don't know. I would have to really think about it. And a lot of it comes down to, like, what do you consider a show, you know? Like,
Yep.
Is Band of Brothers a show?
I don't know what that is.
It's a World War II. I mean, it's kind of hard to say, right? It's like a World War II, mostly nonfiction, but dramatized piece on the landings at Normandy and landings at Normandy, and then some of the things that have happened afterwards. And it's one of the few like HBO shows that I went out and made sure to get on a physical copy of in case the platform like implodes someday and HBO just dies, because it's like, and I think in my opinion it would definitely be in my top 5. I don't know if it'd be number 1, but it's exceptional. But I think there's a fair question to be like, okay, is it a TV show or is it an episodic film that just happens to have originally aired on TV?
I like that though. Like, I would call that a television show. My criteria, it has to be broadcast originally as a piece of segmented television broadcasting. So like, I would call that one, even though it's like a docuseries, that's like the genre I would file under.
I think for me, my number 1 and number 2 are definitely Firefly and Futurama, in that order.
Fair. That is you. That
is me.
Motherfuckers, I've lived with this guy for 3 years. That's him. I mean that.
It's hard. I never really watched episodic TV that much. Not when it was new. You know, I watched stuff later.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
So
I think, and then there's other parts of it where it's like I could point to like Doctor Who stuff, and I would take like 3, 4, 5 episode runs and I would put those very highly. But when you take it as a whole, if I had to like pick a season, I wouldn't put it in the top 5.
You see, this is why I put Doctor Who at my number one, mainly
Mm-hmm.
because I'm the opinion like television has evolved a lot in the last 10 years. The structure of television now I would call more akin to a novel than
Mm-hmm.
actual broadcast. And I think that's a symptom of streaming. In a weird way,
Yeah.
I kind of love that serialized episodic format of older television now. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little tired of having to memorize a fucking novel while writing a novel.
Yeah.
Uh, that being said, I put Doctor Who quite highly on my top 5.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm of the opinion that if you do a show like that, you have to take the good with the bad. And
Yeah.
ultimately,
Yeah,
I
that's
can say
reasonable, especially in a serialized format.
exactly. And especially with Doctor Who, which has, count it with me, ladies and gentlemen, going on 62 years of content. You
Yeah.
really can't say it's anything but television.
Yeah.
And for the highs of that show, they outrank a lot of like the highs I would see in a more serialized condensed package. And for that, I appreciate it a lot as an art, as a TV broadcast. I don't want it to ever change that format because I think that
Mm-hmm.
needs to be preserved because I'm a fucking weirdo. I was going to say something worse, but so I would put Doctor Who, like Venture Brothers, Better Call Saul, and
Mm.
Breaking Bad as number 3 because they belong
Yep.
there. Daredevil, and then I don't know. I've been watching House. House might be on there. House MD, good show. I don't know if I
There's
told
something
you.
notable that I think you've missed.
Oh fuck, what did I miss?
One Piece.
I read One Piece.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it's not in the top 5.
Okay. As I've grown, as a piece of literature, I probably put it in my top 5.
Mm-hmm.
I do not like anime as much as I used to.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, because I think at this point I would rather read One Piece because I can control the flow of how I'm reading it
Mm.
and the pacing.
Yeah.
It drives me fucking nuts when I see a scene from the original manga that I've paced out in my head, and then I see the pacing is not how I imagined it. So, One Piece guy, I will say, good story.
Mm-hmm.
May not be the best for the television medium, but what do I know? I don't have any anime figurines.
Yeah, fair enough. I think I would round out my top 5 in no particular order with Band of Brothers. I think I would put, it's a bit of recency on it, but I think I would put Bocchi the Rock in my top 5. It is that good, just
Is it
on
that
its
good?
own.
Yeah.
It really is. For like not only just like within its genre of being both anime and kind of slice of life and all of that, but it goes well beyond that to just being a good, really well written show. My curveball for number 5, I think, is the Red Green Show.
What's the Red Green Show?
It's a Canadian, I don't know what you call it. It's a Canadian like home improvement knockoff. It's like a mix between Home Improvement and Monty Python, but in Canada.
That's pretty impressive.
It's so good. And part of it is very specific to my life, where I would go camping with my folks, and we had just an old TV with rabbit ears that we would take with us.
Yeah.
And because we'd be camping further up north, we'd get Canadian channels, and this was just something that came up all the time when we were out camping. It was just what was on the Canadian channels when we were there.
You see, I respect that though. I think that I get a little jaded when I hear people like make a list and it's just like all the stuff that's popular at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do think that we should have like a little bit more of a personal attachment to that. That's why I put the Venture Brothers. The Venture Brothers to me is a very what's the word I'm looking for? Personal thing. I got bullied for liking a lot of the shit that Venture Brothers makes fun of. So like I feel vindicated when I watch that show. Didn't Bocchi also make you want to start learning an instrument?
It did,
Damn.
and it hasn't really gone anywhere past that. But I do still have that interest.
Didn't you want to do guitar?
I'd be kind of curious in doing drums.
Drums, that's right.
Yeah.
Fair.
But that kind of goes in with my electronic music stuff, though.
That's fair. There's a place up here in Grand Rapids, Firehouse. Next
Mm-hmm.
time you come up, I'm going to take you there. They have a couple electronic drum kits that you can like program samples into and drum off that.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool.
I'm also realizing as we're talking about Daredevil that the Echo show came out. I completely missed it.
I heard Daredevil's in it. I've seen like the scene he's in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I finally decided what my number 5 is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Twilight Zone.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Only because like I love the Twilight Zone a lot. It is up there with like its formatting is very much like Doctor Who,
Mm-hmm.
where it is less a TV show and more a vehicle for storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Doctor Who in that. And I think that those kind of TV shows are something very special and that they need to be preserved because, quite frankly, again, I'm getting sick of people using television to substitute a novel. Have I ever told you like the conceit of like some of the infamous Orion songs I've done based off the Twilight Zone?
I don't think so.
So, okay, I'm going to share a little bit of how much of a Twilight Zone nerd. The premise of several, if not like a majority of the fucking songs I've written are if I was Rod Sterling and I was telling you narrating the fucked up perspective of a Twilight Zone episode.
Interesting.
Yeah. I have one song that's coming up in Year of the Heathen out whenever I decide to release it. Fuck you. It is a song called At the Window. And this one struck me as just like a Twilight Zone episode, and I was really proud of this one. The premise is it is a song written from the narrative of a shut-in who hangs out at their apartment window all day and watches people. It is also kind of a riff on 600 Pound Life. And it is purely about someone who is stuck at their window for so long that they end up shattering the window and falling out of their building.
Huh.
Yeah.
Would you like to get into some Oscar nominations?
I would love to get into some Oscar noms.
Most of them are pretty much the same as the I think Golden Globes is what we covered, or is it Academy Awards, whichever one it was that we covered a few weeks ago. There were a couple though that stood out in some of the later categories that I wanted to go a bit closer in on because I hadn't heard of them before, and they sound fascinating.
Okay.
So we will get to that, but starting from the top, Best Picture. It's the usual suspects. Honora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, and Wicked.
This was a good year for movies.
It was a really good year for movies.
I didn't really...
And
yeah, sorry.
it's not even just like, because obviously these are like the best of the best and they're all bangers, but there's been so many more niche things that have come out that I have seen people be so excited for and that I've been excited for. Like, I loved Alien Romulus. The Mad Max prequel for Furiosa was exceptional. I've seen so many people who love the Transformers franchise talk about the animated Transformers movie that came out here and just gush about it because they enjoyed it so much. We ate good.
Yeah. Like, the fact that the fucking Brutalist is on the Best Picture list gave that away.
Yeah. 3.5 hours with a baked-in intermission.
Okay, the fact that brutalism as a topic is back blows my mind. I'm giving it to Wicked, though. I don't think Wicked will win, but I want it to win.
I will be very... Well, my gut says it's going to go to Dune. I think we've been so just physically long away from it that we've forgotten how much of a cultural moment that it was. But it was fucking massive. Like, they had white guys understanding how to speak in a Middle Eastern accent. That's big.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Actor in a leading role. I'm surprised. I guess I'm not surprised. I think this is more just the Oscars having a little bit of more self-restraint or maybe more guidelines than the others. But Timothy Chalamet is only nominated once this time. How will he recover? Actor in a leading role: Adrian Brody in The Brutalist, Timothy Chalamet, A Complete Unknown, Coleman Domingo, Sing Sing, Ralph Fiennes, Conclave, and Sebastian Stan in The Apprentice.
Sebastian Stan or Ralph Fiennes. I think Ralph Fiennes is overdue for another Oscar if he doesn't already have one.
Let me double check. I could have sworn he does, but just because he's been in so much. Yeah, he has. I always love when Wikipedia does this. It's such a fun little nod. Like, this person is a big deal. Ralph Fiennes has separate Wikipedia articles, both for his filmography and then a separate one for his awards and nominations.
I'll live with that. Another Oscar to Ralph Fiennes.
Yeah. Yeah, he does not have an Oscar yet.
Oh.
He has 3 nominations for Best Supporting Actor, including this one. So, Best Supporting Actor in Schindler's List, Best Actor in The English Patient, and nominated for Best Actor in Conclave. But no wins yet.
Who do you want
That's
to have
kind
it?
of crazy. Holy shit, he has a Tony before he got an Oscar. What? Oh boy. Okay, this is crazy. For an idea of how fucking talented Ralph Fiennes is, would you like to take a guess what play he was given a Tony for Best Actor? He won it in 1995, and I know it's a play that you know. It's very classical.
Oh, fuck.
One could even call it Shakespearean.
That does not narrow it down at all. The West Side.
What's that?
West Side?
No, it is literally a Shakespeare play.
That does not narrow it down at all. Fuck you, Macbeth.
I know, but fucking Hamlet.
Oh shit, really?
He won a Tony for Best Actor for Hamlet.
Okay, I'll live with this.
Like, that's legit as hell. So yeah, I would love to see him win an Oscar. He absolutely deserves it, especially as he's getting up there in age.
I agree.
Actors in a leading role: Cynthia Erivo, Wicked; Carla Sofia Gascon, Emilia Perez; Mickey Madison, Honora; Demi Moore, The Substance; Fernanda Torres, I'm Still Here. I think we mentioned this before, but like Cynthia, I would love to see her win.
I think she deserves it. I think for Defying Gravity, nailed that song. Deserves it alone.
Actor in a supporting role: Yuri Borisov, Honora; Kieran Culkin, A Real Pain; Edward Norton, A Complete Unknown; Guy Pearce, The Brutalist; and Jeremy Strong, The Apprentice.
Kieran Culkin.
I think that's valid. I'd be happy to see Edward Norton win it as well, but I'd be a bit surprised by that, given how much of the limelight for A Complete Unknown has been for Timothy Chalamet, of course, being the lead.
Mm-hmm.
Actress in a supporting role: Monica Barbaro. Monica Barbaro. My mouth does not want to say that correctly. Monica Barbaro, A Complete Unknown; Ariana Grande, Wicked; Felicity Jones, The Brutalist; Isabella Rossellini, Conclave; Zoe Saldana, Emilia Perez.
I don't really.
This is a trickier one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. Let me double check for Rossellini, because I don't remember the name. But if it's who I'm thinking of, film and television. No, just give me filmography. Yeah, Sister Agnes. She does phenomenally, and I guess actress in a supporting role, that makes sense, in Conclave as Sister Agnes. Fantastic scene where she, as like just a nun, is yelling at the bishops to just do their fucking job, which is great. I would kind of lean on giving this one to Felicity Jones, though, for The Brutalist. I heard overwhelming praise for her to the degree that most people would give to like a leading actress rather than being in a supporting role. So I think there's some validity there.
Okay.
Animated feature film, Flow, Inside Out 2, Memoir of a Snail, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, and The Wild Robot.
My head wants Memoir of a Snail because I really love that art style. And I know the director is very good, and I want him to be recognized more.
Yep.
But man, it'd be so fucking funny if Wallace and Gromit won.
It would be great. For me, it's between Memoir of a Snail and The Wild Robot, but my heart wants Wallace and Gromit to win, just because it's Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah.
Seeing Wallace and Gromit nominated for an Oscar in the current year, it's heartwarming.
Isn't it, though? Because, like, Vengeance Most Foul... I've seen it, by the way.
I assume it's good.
It's very good.
Yeah.
My one problem with the movie, right? I think it's too good. I think it is a very solid movie. And in a weird way, it's kind of conservative. But at the same time, I'm an American. I don't know if it's too crazy to say that. But it is a delightful movie, and quite frankly, I think it's a big sin to not have released it in theaters in America.
Yeah. What the hell?
Yeah. And I'm going to be saying that again when Wake Up Dead Man comes out.
Next up, we have documentary feature film, Black Box Diaries, No Other Land, Porcelain War, Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat, and Sugarcane. This is what I wanted to highlight here. Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat. I hadn't heard of this at all, but it sounds fascinating. Yeah. United Nations, 1960. The Global South ignites a political earthquake. Jazz musicians Abby Lincoln and Max Roach crash the Security Council. Nikita Khrushchev bangs issue, and the U.S. State Department swings into action, sending jazz ambassador Louis Armstrong to the Congo to deflect attention from the CIA-backed coup. Director Johan Gumprez captures the moment when African politics and American jazz collided in this magnificent essay film, a riveting historical roller coaster that illuminates the political machinations behind the 1961 assassination of Congo's leader, Patrice Lumumba. Richly illustrated by eyewitness accounts, official government memos, testimonies from mercenaries and CIA operatives, speeches from Lumumba himself, and a veritable canon of jazz icons, Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat interrogates colonial history to tell an urgent and timely story of precedent that resonates more than ever in today's geopolitical climate. That sounds fascinating. Unfortunately, it's one flaw. It's in French.
Oh god, Americans are never going to watch that.
I don't even think it got a release in the US. But the reviews for it, and I think that probably because it was in French is why we didn't talk about it when it released earlier this year, because it's just like, okay, cool title, but I can't find anything about it in English. Reviews for it are overwhelmingly positive.
That's good.
Which, yeah, goes to figure. International feature film. I'm Still Here, The Girl with the Needle, Amelia Perez, The Seed of the Sacred Fig, and Flow. I feel like this one's probably a bit of a shoo-in for Amelia Perez, like a bit of a gimme almost, with just as many heavy hitters as there are for the larger categories. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets overlooked a bit there, and then people be like, yeah, that was still a really good movie, we'll give them this one.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it go to Flow, though. That is just, again, great year for animated films, and it looks gorgeous. Directing, Sean Baker, Honora, Bradley Corbet, The Brutalist, James Mangold, A Complete Unknown, Jacques Audiard, Amelia Perez, and Coralie Farguet, The Substance. I don't have any particular thoughts on this one either way. I guess I would like to see Corbet, The Brutalist, get this one, just for doing something so different in the world of film today.
It's weird because the more we go on with this, the more I realize I think we should just give a participation trophy to all the Oscars.
Yeah, right. They're all great.
Yeah. I'm worried that by picking selective ones this year, we're going to send the wrong message to other films coming out.
Yeah, it's hard. I think the best thing for this year of Oscars is that no one thing sweeps.
Yeah. Yeah, there should not be a sweep this year. It should not
Yeah.
be a sweep year.
And to that end, because I don't think we've actually given any nominations for it, cinematography, we have Lowell Crawley, The Brutalist, Greg Fraser, Dune Part 2, Paul Gilham, Emilia Perez, Ed Lachman, Maria, and Jaron Blasch, Nosferatu. This feels like a bit of a shoo-in for Dune. It is a beautiful movie. The scene in particular where they are inside the rebel fighters like ancient cavern system, and there's just like the soft light bleeding in through the holes in the top of it above, and just massive crowds of people. It's breathtakingly well done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Writing original screenplay. We have Honora, The Brutalist, A Real Pain, September 5, and The Substance.
I've never seen any of those, unfortunately.
I feel like this would be a good one to give to either Honora or The Substance. I've not seen either of them, of course, but I have heard, at least for The Substance, a ton of extremely positive things about it. In particular, of just it's, you know, a lot of it is the combination of the writing and the direction, but of how it is so overt in its themes and messaging that it like wraps around from being blunt to like actively beating you over the head with it in a way that is equally entertaining to something trying to be subtle. It's garish.
Garish.
Writing, adapted screenplay, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Amelia Perez, Nickel Boys, Sing Sing. Again, any of these would be great.
Yeah.
It's very hard to pick.
We're playing very centralist roles this time around in the Oscars.
I know. It's hard. Film editing, Honora, The Brutalist, Conclave, Amelia Perez, and Wicked. I feel like this one would be particularly nice to go to The Brutalist, given that it was shot on film, 16 millimeter. That adds extreme challenges in editing at a technical level that other films just don't have to deal with anymore, and is like the reason why things are digital now a lot of the time. I don't know. Like, just the fact to edit in an intermission, I give it to him for that.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not? I think there's a very technical art lost in editing nowadays. Because again, digital is a godsend.
Yes. And in a good way. It allows it to be way more accessible.
Yeah, but I will also say, I think an editor who is more experienced with that like technical side with physical film is probably a better editor all overall, because you have to spend a lot more time and slow down and think about how everything is going to process. Because you run a real risk with editing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Music, original song, El Mal from Amelia Perez, The Journey from The 6888, Like a Bird from Sing Sing, Mi Camina from Amelia Perez, and Never Too Late from Elton John, Never Too Late.
Feels really weird that there's a musical that's all over the place and there's no original song category for that.
Yeah. We also have music original score with The Brutalist, Conclave, Amelia Perez, Wicked, and The Wild Robot.
Wicked score was fine. I didn't hear the scores of anything else.
Conclave's, I'm a bit surprised that it's nominated. It's like good, but it does really well in when it knows to have the score stop and just be quiet. It's really effective in moments for that. There's a really good scene at the start of it after the Pope dies, where they have the Pope in like a body bag in an ambulance, and it has the score and everything's going and going, and then it has like a long shot of the camera following, like looking down onto the Pope in the body bag on the stretcher, and it's just this long shot watching it from that perspective as he's carted down the hall and put into the ambulance. and then the ambulance closes and the lights get dark because it's the middle of the night, and the ambulance drives away, and it stays on the Pope in the body bag, and as they drive away, the score just cuts out. It's just quiet. You just hear the ambulance driving, you hear the cart that the body is on wriggling around as they hit bumps and stuff, and it's extremely effective, and it's knowing when to be quiet. We also have sound, A Complete Unknown, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, Wicked, and The Wild Robot.
Complete Unknown.
Would feel obligated to give this to Dune Part 2, because that's some crazy noises. I think the sound of the one warship launching its barrages of missiles onto the Rebel thing is going to be kind of like iconic in film going forward because it's so distinct.
Okay.
But again, it's a hard category to pick one.
I feel a little loyal to A Complete Unknown, but I haven't seen it. So
that's fair.
Just to me, I like the prospect of them having to work with old audio equipment.
It makes for an interesting dichotomy of like what do you value in a film sound? How do you rate these against each other when what they're doing with sound is so different technically?
I agree.
Yep. Production design: The Brutalist, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Nosferatu, and Wicked.
Nosferatu.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I think that's valid. There's a good argument to be made there. Visual effects: Alien Romulus, Better Man, Dune Part 2, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and Wicked. I feel obligated to give it to Alien Romulus because they used a fucking miniature ship in 2024. That's cool as hell.
We need more movies with miniatures.
Miniatures are so good.
Aren't they, though?
Lost art.
Yeah. Like, George Lucas, I wish still made movies, because I know he's still doing that shit.
Absolutely.
What is
makeup and hairstyle?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, he's sitting on gigantic piles of money. That's his job now. He sits there and has lots of money.
Like a Mongolian war chief just coming back from, like, spoils.
Yeah. Didn't he get paid like $1 billion when he sold to Disney? Like an actual $1 billion?
Probably. He's 80. We're going to lose George Lucas soon.
We are. Makeup and hair: Emilia Perez, A Different Man, Nosferatu, The Substance, and Wicked. That's, again, a very tight category. Holy crap. Costume design: Ariane Phillips, A Complete Unknown, Leslie Crystal, Conclave, Janty Yates and Dave Crossman, Gladiator 2, Lyndon Weir, Nosferatu, and Paul Tazewell, Wicked. I think that's an understandable one if they gave that one to Wicked, because I am a bit amused seeing Conclave on there, because it's like technically true, but it's like they just wear like Pope robes. It's not that hard. You just got to know which robes the different people got to wear. Coming into the close here, Best Animated Short: Beautiful Men, In the Shadow of the Cypress, Magic Candles, Wander to Wonder, and Yuck. We have Best Documentary Short: Death by Numbers, I Am Ready Warden, Incident, Instruments of a Beating Heart, and The Only Girl in the Orchestra. And finally, we have Best Live Action Short, which is Alien, Anuja, I'm Not a Robot, The Last Ranger, and The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent.
Well, who is it going to be?
So, yeah, the Oscars are going to be broadcast on March 2nd, and it's a banger of a year.
Yeah. Good luck to Conan having to, announce who wins.
Yeah. We do have some releases this week.
Ooh.
3 of them, in fact. To start, I want to make a mention for Presence, latest piece from Steven Soderbergh and Lucy Liu in the lead. reviews are still relatively coming in, but what there are quite positive from critics, relatively mixed from audiences. Yeah. This is, what is this? Horror, I guess. I like seeing Lucy Liu doing more stuff. She's I feel like she's a pretty underrated actor at this point. She's done a bit too much like lower tier TV stuff, I feel, and people have forgotten that she's just a really good actor.
I need to look right here because I don't know what she's been up to lately.
Yeah, it's been a little while. I know she was in something. What was it she was in recently?
Oh wow, she came back to film hard.
Yeah, she was in Shazam, in Red One. Pretty, popcorn movies, right?
Yeah.
There we go. Sort by critic highest. Thank you. Apparently her highest rated movie is Tinkerbell and the Lost Treasure.
That does not feel right.
Yeah. Of the movies that she's also got a 90% for her role of the same character in the movie Tinkerbell. Go figure. Not a ton. Like, obviously, she's in Kill Bill, but not a ton lately.
Yeah. Huh.
I do highly recommend checking out the performance that she did in the TV show Elementary. She plays Joan Watson and does an exceptional job.
I see what they did there.
Yeah. It's a fun twist, and it's very effective. Also coming out this week, I'm mentioning this one mostly just so that we can make fun of it a little bit. Flight Risk with Mark Wahlberg, directed by Mel Gibson. This is your annual reminder that Mel Gibson is still a piece of shit.
I was about to say, I don't think... Sorry.
He's a piece of shit, and he makes bad movies. I was very, very amused to see the number of critic reviews that clarified that, while that exact point, basically, that yes, Mel Gibson is, in the real life, not a good person and not somebody who we would want to promote. And thankfully, his movie is bad enough that we don't have to. I saw direct-to-video in a world where direct-to-video doesn't exist mentioned a lot.
That's good. That's really good.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad for it because the trailers for this looked kind of interesting. And part of me wanted Mark Wahlberg to get, like, a good movie, but part of me is also kind of glad that we don't have to deal with Mark Wahlberg being a serious actor still.
One day, he'll get a serious movie. And then he'll, like, hate it and then just go away from acting.
What's his thing look like? Maybe I'm forgetting something here. No, I mean, okay. Technically, he was in The Departed, but, like, I don't think anybody's going to go and rewatch The Departed for Marky Mark's part of it.
No.
Last release of this week, one that I know you have a particular affinity for. Technically, this is one that what came out last week, but we didn't have a show last week. Grand Theft Hamlet.
Oh, fuck. I forgot about that. I haven't seen it yet.
Mm-hmm. 97% critic reviews.
It blows my mind. Grand Theft Hamlet, for those of you uninitiated, is Hamlet being redone in the video game Grand Theft Auto Online.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also kind of a sub-documentary about the making of such a production. And I am very impressed to see that Machinima is still up and running.
It's nice.
Yeah. As someone who admires old internet culture, it's very reassuring.
Mm-hmm. There's a good piece here from a review by Steven Silver. He says, those who love the documentary Grand Theft Hamlet will call it a brilliant and creative conceit. Those a bit more skeptical will call it a gimmick. I think they're all right, and it's both.
That's reassuring.
That's very much where I fit with it. Where it's like, yeah, this is a gimmick, but it's a cool gimmick, and that's okay.
You know,
Gimmicks are around because they work. They're effective.
I don't think it being a gimmick is that bad because, like,
Not at all.
it's an original gimmick. Yeah.
Absolutely is. The only thing that I like am immediately like viscerally negative towards is whenever I see a screenshot from it that has like the GTA hood still on it. It's like it's totally irrational. It just makes me go like, "Oh, I'm seeing a screenshot of a video game and I don't like that."
Fair.
It's a gut reaction. But yeah, good to see it getting its flowers. But that is what I have.
That's all I have too. So in the meantime, everybody.
Actually, I did want to mention, just Grand Theft Auto. Maybe remember it. Get ready. So there's some games. I don't know. Maybe they weren't even a games journalist. Maybe they're an industry advocate. But that was making headlines this week saying that Grand Theft Auto 6, I guess it would be, should, for the sake of the industry, be priced at $85 to $100.
Fuck that. If that's the case, no one's buying that until Black Friday.
I don't know. I'm a bit conflicted by it, you know? Because if Grand Theft Auto 6 does somehow manage to live up to the extremely lofty goals that 5 has set for it, which is kind of something that we've yet to see a game stick that landing, you know? Like, Bethesda failed to live up to Skyrim multiple times. They made good games, but they never made Skyrim again. We've seen Dragon Age recently with Veilguard, you know, completely failed to stick that landing. But we're going to have a couple of attempts from more studios coming out here. We've got a new Witcher game. We're going to have a new Grand Theft Auto game. I do think there is probably a world where a Grand Theft Auto game is well made enough and has enough work put into it that a $100 price tag could be justified, but almost no other game would meet that level.
That makes sense. I think there's no way it can live up to that expectation.
I agree.
Because I think the only way you can make that expectation is when you're surprised by something.
Yep. And if you are charging $100 for something, you're like telling everybody to go in with the expectation that this is the best video game ever made.
Exactly.
And it could be really, really good, but it's probably not going to be the best ever. But I would be very happy to be proven wrong on that.
If there's a day one patch, so help me God.
Oh, you know, day one patch, my good sir, they're not even going to have a physical release. Download that 300 gigabyte motherfucker.
You had to get a separate console just to host this one game.
We are rapidly getting to that point where games are so large and graphics are so extensive and unoptimized that you will need dedicated. We're going back to cartridges, right? Where you need dedicated hard drives for all of your games, or you have to re-download them every time.
I agree. And this is why I support indie games, because holy fuck, we need to just dial it back.
I would wonder how unpopular that would be. We saw that for a brief period with Sony's forays into the mobile market, and we've seen it a bit again with the Switch, where needing to buy external storage is just a reality of owning the platform. I'd be curious to see how a more traditional console would fare with that, right? Like if the PS6 or the Xbox 2, whatever the fuck they want to call it, comes out and it has like barely no internal storage, but a hot swappable storage solution that you can buy additional storage for relatively cheaply. I think there's room for something like that.
Perhaps so.
Because it would cut back on the initial costs quite a lot. Just not having to pay $50 for whatever storage they want to bake into it. Anyways. Tangent aside.
I'm Mr. Ryan, and I'm not paying $100 for GTA 5.
And I'm Kyril, and I'm also a Schmo.
Have a good night, everybody.